All right, so I've been digging through the dark corners of the internet, looking at marketplace data from 2026, reading all the angry comments. And I've got my hands on what the community has officially called industrial trash. These are the 5 worst rated woodworking tools out there. They're cheap, they're flimsy, and frankly, they're dangerous. We've got a miter gauge that promises precision but delivers chaos, a table saw sled made of what feels like a recycled milk jug, and a few other contenders for the scrap heap. People bought these thinking they were getting a deal, but what they got was a one-way ticket to frustration and ruined projects. I'm going to unbox this pile of junk and show you exactly why they failed so spectacularly. You can see it right out of the box. This miter gauge, look at that wobble. That's not just slop, that's a recipe for disaster. The blade flex on this plastic sled is even worse. You push a piece of hardwood against this, and it's going to bind, it's going to kick back. It's just not safe. The manufacturers cut every corner they could find. They used the cheapest materials. The tolerances are a joke, and the designs are fundamentally flawed. These things shouldn't even be on the market. But here they are. And that got me thinking. It's easy to just throw them away, but what if we didn't? What if there's something salvageable hidden inside all this plastic and pot metal? So here's the challenge I'm setting for myself and for you watching at home. Can a little bit of good engineering, some decent materials, and a bit of maker know-how rescue these budget-grade mechanical skeletons? Can we take the absolute worst tools money can buy and transform them into high-performance, top-tier shop jigs that you'd actually want to use? We're not just fixing them. We're rebuilding them from the ground up to be better, stronger, and more accurate than they ever were. It's a big task, but I think we can pull it off. Let's get to work. First up is this thing they call a miter gauge. The reviews on this were brutal, and now I see why. It's got this stamped metal protractor head that feels like it'll bend if you look at it wrong, and the bar is the real problem. It's undersized aluminum, probably extruded on a Monday morning. When you slide it into the miter slot on the table saw, you get almost 1/8 of an inch of side-to-side play. That's not a precision tool. That's a random angle generator. You could never make a repeatable cut with this. It's just not possible. The locking mechanism is a single tiny screw into a plastic knob that barely holds it in place. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this thing completely apart. We're going to salvage what we can, which honestly isn't much. The protractor head might be useful as a template, maybe, but the bar is going straight into the scrap bin. It's useless. The core idea of a miter gauge is sound, but the execution here is a complete failure. I'm going to show you the wobble up close. I'll put a dial indicator on it so you can see just how bad the deflection is. When you apply even a little bit of pressure, like you would when pushing a piece of wood through the saw, the whole thing just twists. That's how you get kickback. That's how you get hurt. The plan is to replace the garbage bar with a new one that I'll mill myself from a solid piece of steel. It needs to fit the miter slot with 0 play. I'm talking about a tolerance of less than 1/1000th of an inch. We'll add some adjustable set screws along the side to really dial it in and eliminate any slop for good. We're also going to ditch this flimsy locking handle and build a new, much more robust fence and stop block system. We're essentially just using the original tool as a vague suggestion, a ghost of an idea, and building something real in its place. It's about taking a failed concept and re-engineering it to be safe and reliable. Next on the chopping block is this table saw sled. It's almost entirely made of this cheap, brittle plastic. You can see the flex in it just by pushing on it with my finger. The marketing promised smooth, accurate crosscuts, but the community feedback was a landslide of cracked frames and dangerous blade binding. The runners are just more of this flimsy plastic, and they were probably warped right out of the mold. The idea of pushing a heavy piece of oak or maple through the saw on this thing is terrifying. It's a kickback machine waiting to happen. There's no rigidity, no stability, nothing you need for a safe cut. So, it's time to strip this thing down to its bones. I'm going to tear off all the plastic junk, the useless fence, the toy-like hold-downs. I'm looking for the mechanical skeleton. And believe it or not, there's something here we can use. Buried under all that garbage are two steel guide rails. They're not great, but they're straight and they're steel. That's our starting point. That's the core we can build on. Everything else, the plastic base, the runners, the fence, is getting thrown out. It's all trash. We're saving the only two components that have any potential. With the rails salvaged, the real work begins. I'm going to test their movement, make sure they slide true without any binding. They look okay. The foundation of any good sled is a solid base and runners that glide perfectly in the miter slots. So we're going to build a new base out of 3/4-inch Baltic birch plywood. It's stable, it's flat, and it's strong. We'll mount these salvaged steel rails to our new, perfectly flat base. This is the key. We're taking the only good part of this failed tool and integrating it into a properly engineered system that we build ourselves. We're turning a flimsy toy into the foundation for a real piece of shop equipment. All right, let's talk about this router table fence. Out of the box, it's a mess. The fence faces aren't coplanar, meaning they don't line up perfectly, which is a huge problem for accuracy. The whole thing is supposed to slide on these plastic runners in T-tracks on the router table, but there's a ton of slop. When you go to lock it down, it shifts every single time. You can set it perfectly with a square, but the moment you tighten the knobs, it moves 1/16 of an inch. That makes it completely useless for any kind of precision work. You'd be better off clamping a straight piece of wood to your table. The problem is all in the connection to the table. These cheap plastic runners just can't hold the fence steady, so they have to go. We're going to completely re-engineer the way this fence mounts and slides. The core aluminum extrusion of the fence itself is actually halfway decent. It's straight enough to work with, so we'll keep that. Our mission is to create a mounting system that offers zero-tolerance movement. It needs to glide smoothly when you want it to, and lock down like it's welded in place when you don't. That means custom milling new runners that fit the T-tracks perfectly. I'm going to use a piece of UHMW plastic, or maybe even aluminum, to mill new runners that fit the T-slots with no play at all. Then, instead of these terrible little knobs that cause everything to shift, we're going to upgrade to some real hardware. I'm talking about heavy-duty toggle clamps. These clamps apply pressure straight down, so when you lock the fence in place, it won't shift left or right. It will be absolutely rock solid. This is a simple but massive upgrade. We're taking the one decent part of this tool, the aluminum extrusion, and building a professional-grade lockdown system around it. This is how you turn a frustrating tool into a reliable one. This tapering jig is another classic example of a good idea executed poorly. It's designed to help you cut consistent tapers on table legs or other parts, but it's so flimsy and the adjustment mechanism is so imprecise that it's more likely to ruin your workpiece than help you. It's made of thin, stamped steel that flexes under pressure, and the hinge is just a single, sloppy rivet. The angle scale is basically a sticker that was probably put on crooked at the factory. Trying to set a precise angle with this thing is pure guesswork. You tighten the locking wing nut and the whole setting shifts. It's just not a reliable tool for repeatable cuts. We're not just going to fix this jig, we're going to completely transform it. We're going to take the basic concept and turn it into a heavy-duty, micro-adjustable, hybrid jig. I'm going to reinforce the whole structure with some angle iron, welding it in place to eliminate all the flex. We'll drill out that sloppy rivet and replace it with a proper shoulder bolt and bronze bushings to create a smooth, tight pivot point. This will be the new, solid foundation. We're adding strength and stability where there was none, turning this flimsy piece of stamped steel into a rigid, trustworthy frame that can handle real work. Now, for the precision. I'm throwing away the sticker scale and the crude locking nut. We're going to build a proper micro-adjustment mechanism using a threaded rod and a knurled knob. This will let us dial in the exact angle of the taper with incredible precision. To calibrate it, I'll use a digital angle gauge. We'll be able to set angles to 1/10 of a degree, something the original tool could only dream of. When you compare the cost of this failed tool, plus a few dollars in steel and hardware, to a high-end commercial tapering jig that costs hundreds, the value is incredible. We're building a professional tool for a fraction of the price, all starting from a piece of junk. So here it is, the budget crosscut sled, reborn. We took the steel rails from that plastic nightmare and built this. It's got a solid Baltic birch base, a tall, dead flat fence made from 2 pieces of laminated plywood, and our custom-fit runners. The original sled was a disaster, unsafe, and inaccurate. This new sled, built around that salvaged steel heart, is a completely different animal. It's heavy, it's stable, and it glides in the miter slots with no side-to-side play at all. But the real test isn't how it looks or feels. It's how it cuts. It's time for some high-stakes cuts. I've got a piece of expensive hardwood here, some figured walnut. This is not the kind of wood you want to mess up. A bad cut means a lot of wasted money. First, I'll show you what a cut with the original plastic sled would have looked like, or at least what we can simulate. You'd get burn marks from the blade flexing, the cut edge wouldn't be square, and you'd have tear out. It would be a mess. It's the kind of cut that makes you want to give up woodworking. It's just not acceptable for any serious project. Now, we're going to make the same cut on our rebuilt sled. Look at that. A perfectly clean, glass-smooth edge. No burning, no tear out, and it's perfectly square. I'll check it with a machinist's square so you can see for yourself. That's the difference between a junk tool and a professional jig. And we built this for pennies on the dollar. The secret is to keep an eye out for these failed tools. You can often find them on clearance at liquidation sales or on marketplace sites for next to nothing because everyone knows they're terrible. But what they see as trash, we see as a parts kit. We see the steel rails, the aluminum extrusion, the raw materials we can use to build something great. It's about seeing the potential. So, what did we learn today? We learned that even the most hated, worst-rated tools on the market have a glimmer of hope inside them. It's not about the tool itself, but about the raw materials you can salvage from it. That flimsy miter gauge gave us the inspiration for a zero-slop replacement. That dangerous plastic sled gave up its steel rails to become the heart of a dead-accurate, professional-grade jig. By looking past the terrible design and focusing on the core components, you can find incredible value where others only see junk. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to outfit your shop with high-performance tools. The key is to think like a maker. See every failed product not as a mistake, but as a kit of parts waiting for a better design. A piece of steel, an aluminum extrusion, a handful of fasteners, these are the building blocks. With a solid base like some quality plywood and a few clever upgrades, you can build jigs and tools that outperform expensive commercial versions for a tiny fraction of the cost. It's about investing your time and skill instead of just your money. You get a better tool in the end, and you get the satisfaction of knowing you built it yourself to your own high standards. I want to see what you all are building. If you've ever rescued a junk tool and turned it into something amazing, share it in the comments below. Tell me your story. These projects are what being a maker is all about. Solving problems, improving our workshops, and making things better. If you got some value out of this and want to see more high-performance shop upgrades and rebuilds, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's always something in the shop that can be made better, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching.